Welcome back to HC AMA. Today we have a super exciting event in store for you today. Got a man that needs no introductions, Mike Bosworth, the inventor of solution selling, sales philosopher, our community favorite. Welcome, Mike.
Hi, Julia. I'm happy to be here with you.
For some reason, I can't hear you.
I'm unmuted. Try
Yep,
that again.
amazing. Yep,
Okay,
now it works.
good.
Mike, we have, I think, like 60 something questions for you today.
Woo.
It's gonna
Okay,
be it's gonna be a tough blitz.
okay.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
So the first question is, what stories do elite leaders tell?
Elite leaders know that they have to really be an elite leader, people have to choose to follow them. And so they should have at their fingertips pretty quick but emotional stories about why did I found this company? What's our mission? How are we helping the world? What's our strategy? Um, in other words, inspiring the followers to gain the vision and follow along. You can tell when leaders lose the room. I've been in so many annual corporate sales meetings where you see all these managers get up one after another and they don't own the room. And the way to own the room is with stories.
We have a lot of questions about stories. I'm trying to find some of them, but let's transition to this one. Your take on the most important stakeholder for driving the buying process.
Well, that's complicated if you're selling B2B because there's typically a committee. You have to sell the user buyers. You have to get the approval of the technical buyers. And you have to be able to explain to their CFO in non-technical terms the value of how whatever you're trying to sell them is going to help them make money, save money, achieve goals, or solve problems. And I see so many organizations where they're pretty good at selling to the users, they're not so good at selling to the CFO. But you have multiple buyers in these big productivity improving B2B sales.
Next question. How do you uncover real capitalized business problems that make executives act?
The best way now, I think now we're talking about internal selling. And
Yep.
I have found the best way for middle managers, people in production and material control and finance and HR and all these departments who want the company to spend more money and improve their capability set. I found that the best way, so for instance, if I'm in manufacturing and I want my senior executives to approve a large expenditure, I have to go in with a peer envy story. In other words, I would say, if you're the CFO, I'd say, Julia, I attended an American Production and Inventory Control Society meeting last week, and I sat down with the manager who's got the same job I do at our biggest competitor, and he has the ability to do this and this and this, and I don't here. And I need you to spend the money to give me those capabilities so we can remain competitive. So this is not for an external salesperson. It's for the internal people who want the new capabilities to go in and say, I know my peers in other companies have things that are making them more effective. I don't have those things, and I want you to buy them for me.
I just I just gotta listen and read the questions one by one. I really want to go deeper. I'll just try to address like 20 questions and then ask some for myself. But
Okay.
let's go. CROs get fired after 14 months on average. What is leadership doing wrong?
What leadership is doing wrong is what CROs do when the numbers don't come in. And the numbers don't come in for most of them. And that's a whole nother issue of how they're grading their pipeline and how they're forecasting and stuff. But basically, when the numbers don't come in the senior staff meeting, they all look at the CRO and say, what's going on? You promised us this number, it didn't come in. And the CRO's most typical response is, get off my ass, you don't understand sales. And after 14 months of you don't understand sales, they get fired. And if it's a small company, 10, 20, 30 million, and they hire another CRO, and 14 months later, the same problems, then they fire the CEO. So they'll give every CEO one failed CRO, but they won't give them two.
How can we most effectively create customer specific value proposition?
The reason that's difficult for most companies is most companies are too product marketing driven. And the product marketing department, the people who know the most about the product, they typically don't understand how customers use the product. And the campaign I've been preaching for 30 years is let's evolve from product marketing to customer usage marketing. And if we really knew how our most successful customers are using our product to make money, save money, achieve goals, solve problems, then it's pretty easy not only to get new prospects interested, but it makes it much easier to train new salespeople. So many companies, the startup time for a newly hired salesperson is 9, 12, 15 months because product marketing pounds all the features into their brains and shows them how to demo and how to do the company PowerPoint presentation. But since they don't know how successful customers are actually using it, the salespeople have to go out and do that on their own. And what I recommend to my clients is when you hire a new B2B salesperson, have 2 or 3 of your most successful customers allow your new salesperson to go out and interview them. And so if you were the customer and if I were the CRO, I'd say, Julia, I've got a few new reps. If you would allow them to come out and interview you about how you use our products, I'm going to take you out for a big golf outing or a big dinner or whatever. I'm going to take care of you, but I need you to help me educate my new salespeople on how successful users like you actually use our products. And a successful customer who's also happy customer will help you train your new salespeople. But what salespeople need the most is not product knowledge, but situation-specific solution knowledge. They need to know how specific functional users, whether they're in engineering or IT or HR or manufacturing, how they respond to difficult events in their business using our product. And product marketing in general is dismal at helping not only new salespeople, but helping customers understand how to use the product successfully. I was working with a $3 billion company and they had 50 some people in product marketing and only 2 of them had ever spoken to a customer.
That's not new. Mike, it's fascinating insight. I'm curious, how do you see operationally this division? I mean, obviously we have sales department, marketing department, customer success department, but how do you see this transition from product marketing into customer adoption, customer usage marketing? Um, are salespeople going to be involved?
Well, the salespeople could be involved if we taught them how to go out and harvest success stories. But what I'd rather is teach the product marketing people or the new department, the customer success department. We need some group of people to go out and harvest stories about successful customer usage of whatever we sell. That's the most valuable knowledge. And when newly hired salespeople, they have no clue, right, how customers are using the product. And you could, tell your new salespeople to go out and interview successful customers, but that would require a customer you have confidence in and a customer that likes you as the CRO enough to allow that to happen. But ideally, we convert or we leave product marketing alone. We need a department that knows everything about the product. And those people are needed typically to go out on service calls to help new clients implement that detailed product knowledge. But that's not the kind of knowledge salespeople need.
I see. So you're seeing it because there's a massive trend in the industry for marketers to become basically revenue oriented. And it's not even a trend, it's just like a must now.
A must, yeah.
And so the, I don't want to say this, but um, with marketing, it's so wide. There's a T-shaped marketing approach where like there are so many functions, and to be, excellent in marketing, you have to know so many things. Um, how do we not basically limit marketing to just servicing sales?
Well, if you think about it, marketing and sales, the one thing they share is both of them are charged with helping people buy their products and services. The main difference is marketing is going one to many and sales is going one-on-one. But the thing that they can both agree on is we need to help people choose to buy our products and services. We want to influence them to buy rather than persuade them to buy. And if they can agree on that, then the next big thing that I have found with my clients is if I can get the CRO and the CMO in a room for 2 hours, my objective would be to get them to agree on the definition of a qualified need. Because if we can get them to agree on the definition of a qualified need, now marketing can reach out, stimulate curiosity, and AI is getting really good at helping people helping marketing departments go find people who should be looking at our stuff and say, are you curious how other materials managers, other engineers, other IT departments have solved these three problems? If you'd like to hear a story about that, let us know. And stimulate their curiosity, because the first step in a buy cycle is curiosity. And if they can agree to allow us to tell them a short story to satisfy their curiosity, and then at the end of that 60 seconds maximum story about it's really about a successful customer who's got the same job as they do, who's already solved a problem they haven't figured out how to solve yet. And if you can find those people and say, would you like to hear how one of your peers has solved this problem? I don't think I've ever had anybody turn down a peer story. They say, sure. So 10 seconds gets them to anticipate a story. And human beings love stories. We start our kids off on them on Once Upon a Time. And if you offer a story, can I share a quick story with you how another CFO has been able to redo the way they forecast revenue? They're going to say yes. So that 10 seconds of Are You Curious buys you 60 seconds of story time. And then in that 60 seconds, you've got to tell them a story about another CFO, the type of company they work for, how long they've been in business, where he or she went to college, and then their struggle. She was struggling with this, this, and this. 18 months ago, we met her and got her to volunteer to be our first new customer for our new capability. She said yes 18 months ago, and here we are today. This is better, and this is better. But enough about me. What about you? And if that story goes well, we're leading our suspect, our targeted buyer, to some emotional conclusions. The emotional conclusions are, wow, this salesperson's only 30 years old, but she really understands how difficult my job is. And she has helped one of my peers solve a problem I haven't really gotten my arms around yet. And so I want to know more. And so that breaks down the discovery resistance. Those emotional conclusions of this person might be able to help me do something I haven't figured out how to do yet. That breaks down the discovery resistance, and now they open up. So now when we pass the torch back to them and say, enough about me, Julia, tell me what's going on in your business. Instead of being guarded and, well, what do you want to know? They open up and start talking freely about their challenges. And at that point, then we can teach our salespeople how to do intelligent discovery. But until they trust you enough to share their pain, the first really big public display of trust that most buyers give good salespeople is when they trust them enough to admit a problem. Because most human beings will not admit a problem to somebody they don't trust. So once they say, well, Julia, here's the problem I'm having. Once they put their problem on the table, you've now gone from suspect to prospect because it's a demonstration that they're trusting you enough to open up and let you do discovery.
This is so useful. Like, I'm just, as I was listening to this, I'm thinking, well, if somebody reached out to me and actually used the message that you just used, or called me and used the same kind of script, whatever,
Oh,
I would
don't use script.
definitely. I would just, I mean, yes, you want to hear, yes, you want to continue the conversation, yes, you want to click. Why do you think the majority of the industry knowing this methodology, because you've been talking about it for such a long time, and it's, I mean, it's definitely the probably the few things that work in this industry is just this, why it's not being widely adopted when we have the 27 seconds method adopted immediately? Do you have 27 seconds, Mike? Can I pitch you this? Can I get your commitment? And all of those, hacks, little tactics, they get adopted immediately, and all your inbox is just basically
Right.
full with the same stuff.
Well, I tell you, my LinkedIn inbox every day has got so many obnoxious messages where they're presuming that I'm going to be interested because they do this, and this, where they know nothing about me. And they're pitching, we do this real well, and we can do this, and we can fix this, and we can save you this much money. Oh, it's worse now than it ever has been, because those organizations don't understand how people buy. 40 years ago, there was some company in Boston that was working with brain research and stuff, and they talked about how most human beings have a foreground and a background in their brain, just like computers used to have a foreground and a background. And in the foreground, they say most humans can juggle 7 plus or minus 2 things in their foreground brain. They said Malcolm Forbes could juggle 20 in his foreground brain, but most people, 5 to 9, 7 plus or minus 2. So what are the odds if you meet somebody that the problem you're offering solves is already in one of those 7 foreground slots? Not very good. And we used to, in solution selling workshops, have people, we have an ad contest. We say, okay, everybody tonight, go look through magazines or whatever and bring us in an ad that demonstrates how the marketing people are trying to gain control over one of those 7 foreground slots with an ad. And one of the best ones that was ever submitted, you might be too young for this, but there used to be these ads for Michelin tires, and there'd be a Michelin tire with a baby in it.
Yep.
Okay, so now some guy is got a wife at home with 2 or 3 babies, and he's working 50 hours a week, and he grabs a sandwich at his desk, and he goes through and he sees the baby in the tire, and he goes, oh gosh, I was supposed to make an appointment for my wife to take the Volvo to the tire store because our tires are terrible and I don't want my babies riding around in bald tires. But they're so busy, that ad grabbed control. And so now they pick the phone up and they call Discount Tire and they make an appointment. And so everybody's got all these problems they're juggling. And so I still think the best approach is are you curious how we helped one of your peers, another CRO, another CFO, another engineer, solve these 3 problems? And if you say, well, I'm really curious about this one, can I tell you a short story about how one of your peers solved that problem? Parentheses, using our product. We don't even need to say that. And we walk them through the learning curve of their peer, all the way from the setting, what they used to struggle with 18 months ago or 6 months ago or 4 months ago when they discovered what we offer and they decided to take a chance on it. And here we are now in January of 2024, and inventory used to be at 8 million, now it's at 2.7 million. Past due backlog used to be 27%, now it's 3%. But enough about me, what's going on with you? And that little customer usage story removes discovery resistance, gets them to come to emotional conclusions, like we said before. Gee, even though this salesperson's 20 years younger than me, it sounds like she really understands how difficult my job is. And it sounds like she has helped one of my peers solve a problem I haven't figured out how to solve yet. So I'm opening up.
Beautiful. Going on with the list. Tools that help you forecast revenue planning.
Well, the problem, this is a very, very complex issue. In most cases, it starts with pipeline milestones that are vendor-oriented, not buyer-oriented. we did an initial call and we did a presentation and we offered them a demo and we showed them some, ROI examples. We did. And one of the philosophical transitions I try and get my clients to do is go from vendor-oriented pipeline milestones to buyer-oriented pipeline milestones. And now, if the buyer-oriented pipeline milestones can mimic how people buy, and the first one was curious enough to listen to a peer story. First one, because that takes it moves that issue from their background to their foreground. They're curious. And then at the end of 60 seconds, this person understands how hard my job is. This person has helped one of my peers. I want to know more. The next big one is they admit pain. They admit they're having a struggle in an area that relates to your story. Then they agree to allowing you to do some detailed discovery. Now, maybe you bring your product experts out with you to help you do the discovery. Then they agree to, if I had these 3 capabilities, I could solve my problem. They have a buying vision. Then they agree to allow us to prove to them that they have a buying vision. And then once they have proof, then we say, if we get to the point where we might do business in the future, will you want a proposal from me? They always say yes to that. And then we say, well, what do you want in your proposal? And they list off anything they think of. And then the smart salesperson says, well, they didn't mention ROI. They didn't mention a training program. And then so then now you can fill in the blanks. Well, will you also need a formal ROI to go to your CFO with? Do you have a technical review committee in your company? Will that be part of the process? Do you have administrative approvals? Would we have to qualify to be an approved vendor? So in other words, once they have a buying vision and they've had proof, now we need to get them to introduce us to everybody on the buying committee, what it's going to take for the administrative people to approve, what it's going to take for the technical people to approve, the ROI, the internal rate of return, all that stuff. And again, this is all going on buyer-oriented milestones, not we did. And so if the milestones are buyer-oriented, boy, the forecasting gets a lot better. And elite salespeople, they're so good at qualifying that if they don't believe they can win, they will pull the plug. And you know why they'll pull the plug? Because they have the confidence, like Justin Michael, they have the confidence that they can go find another qualified prospect. So many salespeople keep things in their pipeline that they really aren't that sure of, but they hate prospecting so much that they know if they qualify one out of the pipeline, they have to go find another, and they hate that. So it's a very complex process, but if we have the salespeople as solution facilitators, if you will, helping people find solutions, parentheses, using what we sell, forecasting gets a lot better, and you won't have elite salespeople leaving things in their pipeline that they don't believe they're going to close. It's a whole organic transformation, but it's fabulous if you can pull it off.
Thank you so much, Mike. I just want to be respectful for your time. We pre-agreed for 30 minutes. Do we have some extra?
Oh, I'm pretty much retired. I dabble. So yeah, no, we're good.
Appreciate you. So the next question is the GTM strategy for 2024 Where do you see the major shift coming from in terms of companies or strategy towards the market?
I'm not sure how to answer that other than the hardest thing for organizations and for salespeople is finding qualified buyers who are sincerely interested in looking at what you have to sell. And since salespeople hate prospecting so much, boy, if I were running a big sales organization, I'd be spending some money on some AI people who can help me go out there. If I give them the requirements, here are the people who should be looking at what we do by industry, by job title, by revenue, by number of employees, whatever. Go out there and scrape and find the people who we think fit our buying criteria and ask them if they're curious how one of their peers has solved a problem. You can get AI to do that. We don't have to have salespeople dialing for dollars anymore, which they hate. They hate rejection. And that's the main thing I would work on is using AI to find buyers.
What should a seller or a contributor do when starting a new role?
A new well, what's their boss tell them they want them to do? I mean, most sellers don't get to define their own world. They're operating within the parameters that their management put on them, right? So that's a tough one to answer. I'm sorry.
Gen Z on the call. What kinds of stories can I tell during sales calls? What are the key elements to those stories?
All right, there's three primary stories that salespeople need. The first primary story they need is at least one great customer hero story, one great story for each targeted buyer about how one of their peers has made money, saved money, solved a problem, achieved a goal using the product. They also need their own personal story because what happens in these long sales cycles, phase one of the buy cycle, if you will, is there a solution to a problem I have? Do I believe that this company can help me solve my problem? So that first story gets them through phase one of the buy cycle, which is, do these people understand me? Do they understand how hard my job is? And have they helped one of my peers? And can they help me visualize what it would take for me to solve my own problem using their product? That's phase one. Phase two is the details, the proof. Now we have to do proof. Maybe now we bring engineers out to do detailed demos for detailed people. Maybe now in the proof phase, we have to run a preliminary ROI through past the CFO. But in the middle, that's typically where you're spending more time with them. And you might go to lunch and they'd say, so Julia, how'd you get into this business? What's your story? And they will actually ask the seller about their personal story. And so the second story is the who am I story. And it's basically, how did I end up being here today selling these capabilities? And maybe you take them back, I finally, when I was in junior high school, I realized I really like to solve problems. And my dad's an engineer. And so I thought maybe I'd go to engineering school. And then I went to engineering school, but I really didn't like doing engineering. And somebody said, well, we are selling something so complex that we can only hire engineers. And so I got introduced to the idea of selling. And now, even though my mother hated the idea, she, did not want her engineer son to be a salesperson. But now I'm a problem solver. I'm a solution facilitator, and I love it. But it's your personal story of how you came to do what you do for a living. Phase 3 of the buy cycle is now where they're starting to worry about the risk. Gee, what if we do this? What if we don't do this? Where's the economy going? Where's technology going? And at that point, the third story is the who I represent story, and that's the story of your organization. And that's where you tell them the story about how somebody had a crisis and your service people got up at 2 a.m. and went out there and took care of it or whatever. But it's the story of the character of your organization. Your personal story is your own character, how you hit speed bumps and potholes and got through them. And so it's who did I help? Who am I? And who do I work for? Those are the three major stories that each salesperson needs.
Next question. How do I prepare myself to excel in the field? What are the imperatives that I should know or learn? And which skills should I focus on?
It's more of a knowledge than a skill, I think. What salespeople need to be great is situation specific solution expertise. In other words, what job titles, what problems do those job titles have, and how would they use my product to solve those problems? And since most companies don't teach that, because product marketing is doing the product training and it's just showing them features, but not how to use it. What we really have to do is figure out how to turn our product from a noun into a verb. And if I could share a short story with you, I was doing a solution selling workshop, a public one, probably 30, 35 years ago in Del Mar, California. And 24 people at the U, and most people who came to my workshops back then were selling expensive, intangible, productivity improving systems and software and consulting to big organizations. Big deals, long sell cycles. It's a public workshop, so anybody can come onesie twosie. I'm going around the room asking everybody what they sold. And I get around to this one guy, Richard. I said, Richard, what do you sell? And he said, Mike, I sell glue. And I sat back and I said, wait, you know, Richard, I've never had a glue salesperson go through one of my workshops before. And I said, tell me about the glue. And well, it turns out he had a master's degree from chemical engineering from MIT. And if you ask an engineer like that to tell you about the glue, get ready for a very detailed answer. And he started coming back about bonding strength and vibration and temperature fluctuations and mold and I'm looking around the room and everybody's eyes are going up. And so I gave him the timeout sign. I said, Richard, it sounds like you're using the word glue as a noun. Can you change the word glue to a verb and tell me about your product? And he's so smart, he got it instantly. And he started talking about the gluing his customers do instead of the glue. And that's the challenge I give to product marketing. Stop talking about your product as a noun and make it a verb. What do people do with your product in their world to make money, save money, achieve goals, solve problems?
What is the most used method for cloud revenue forecasting?
I have no clue.
What AI are buyers leveraging that we need to be aware of?
From the buyer's point of view, I'm not sure. I'm using AI now. I've got a private AI that I put all my books, my white papers and everything in. And so somebody can go into my AI and ask any question that you'd be asking me today. But as far as, unless, I don't think so. I don't really feel competent to answer that question.
How to follow up without being annoying?
Oh, such a great question. Such a great question. The best way I have found is I find an article or something and I say, Julia, we haven't spoken in 3 weeks. And I was reading a blog this morning and I came across this and I thought you might find it interesting. The way I've used over the years is to send them something intellectually stimulating or interesting. Nothing to do with products, nothing to do with, when's our next meeting or anything, just touch base and give them something interesting. And if they don't respond, it's a pretty good sign that it isn't going well. But
Can you share your top insights, reflections about building your own process, company, and affiliate channels?
well, all right. I started in 1976. I was the top salesperson, new business salesperson at Xerox Computer Services. And so they promoted me to marketing sales manager and told me they wanted me to do sales training. And I said, I don't know how to do sales training. And they said, we know, but our parent company has a methodology called PSS, Professional Selling Skills. And Xerox invented this course and ended up selling it to the whole world. And I went to that course and I learned how to sell bulldozers and hair dryers. And I went back to my management and it was full of high pressure stuff, overcoming objections and multiple closes. And it just made my skin crawl. So I went back and I said, if that's the course you want taught, find yourself another racehorse. I can't teach that. And they said, well, Mike, you're not the first person that we've heard that from. And so they put together, because we were selling cloud computing in the early 70s, and we put together an internal task force and we called it consultative selling internally. And so I started teaching consultative selling for Xerox Computer Services in 1977, 4 to 5 weeks a year. I was a branch manager. They bring me into headquarters. I do a sales boot camp for a week and then go back and be a branch manager. But all the way through 82, from 77 to 82, I did all the internal sales training for Xerox Computer Services. And they told me, oh, Mike, you're really good at this. You should start your own sales training business. And so then I left Xerox Computer Services, too many politics and stuff. I joined a startup and for a year, and we were just going to town, and they called me up one day and fired me. And as it turns out, this was in 1983, I told too many people I thought I could do my boss's job much better than he could. And he was from IBM, and apparently you don't do that at IBM. So they fired me. And that's when I said, to hell with it, I'm going to start my own sales training business. So in 1983, I started solution selling. And I had a curriculum. I had the 9 boxes. I should have called it solution discovery. But anyway, the last thing I ever wanted to do is be part of a big company again. So when I went out on my own, it's because I want to work for myself. I want to work out of my house. No more HR department. No more budgeting goat dance at the beginning of every year. No more horrible forecasting. No more having to fire people and ruin their lives. I didn't want any of that. I wanted to work for myself, create content, teach, and sell. 5 years later, I met a IP lawyer, intellectual property lawyer, And he and I became friends. And I said, he said, Mike, why don't you grow that into a bigger business? And I said, because I don't want to be part of a big organization. He said, we can write an agreement where you can license your intellectual property to other people. They use it and send you a royalty check. And I went, ding. So in 1988, I started adding affiliates, solution selling affiliates. And by the mid 90s, I had 75 people, independent. Only 12 of them were good enough to sell, but about 50 of them were good enough to teach it. And so they just went out, and I started getting royalty checks in the mailbox, and it was pretty awesome. And then in 99, I was going through a divorce, and I needed to sell the company. So I sold it. But made me a lot of money.
Tough one. Fascinating story. I don't think a lot of people have heard it in our community. So appreciate your sharing.
Yeah.
What are some rules for effective stories?
Well, that's a great question, because so many companies, especially in the information technology industry, if you go on their websites, they've got case studies and success stories. But when I talk to salespeople, their own salespeople don't use those stories because they're not sales ready. They're too detailed. They've been edited for every comma and dot the I's and cross the T's. Salespeople have to be able to tell conversational stories eyeball to eyeball, where they're not reading something. And if any of the listeners want to see the storyboard, I will, if you send me a message on LinkedIn or whatever, I'll send you the storyboard. But when we started STORYseekers in 2008, we talked to Hollywood screenwriters who are the best storytellers in the world. Of course, they have 2 hours to tell a story, and a salesperson has 60 seconds to tell the story, but there's still a story arc, and it starts off with a setting. That's the green card. And then it comes up with the struggle, the complication. That's the white card. And then the solution, the aha moment, the insight, the blue card. And then the resolution, the results, inventory went down, etc., the red card. And we have them do them on colored index cards with only a few talking points on each card, where the front of the card has the facts, the back of the card has the emotion. So we teach them to create and tell conversational stories. And it's netting it down and following an arc. And the optional card is the morale card, the yellow card. And we only have to bring that out is if after we tell the setting, the struggle, the insight, and the results, and they still have the, I didn't get it look, then the optional morale card comes out. The reason I told you that story, Julia, is because, but it's really making them succinct, emotional. They have to have a hero. One of the biggest problems with company stories, you hear salespeople have to learn the company story before they can go out. And the worst thing that can happen to a company story is the pronoun we. We were founded in 1992, and we had strong, steady growth, and we did this and we did that. No hero. People don't emotionally relate to a we. IBM used to be really good at this. Our company was founded by Thomas Watson, a person, a hero. He had these values. He struggled here. In 1938, we did this and da 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 da. And then we got a new CEO, and his or her name was, and their value system was. So company stories have to be about people. There have to be heroes. The pronoun we kills a story.
I appreciate you for originality, Mike. We have, I think it's just a, I don't know, it's probably we held like there was a time when we were holding AMAs 3 times, 4 times a week, and you hear the same insights all over again and again and again. With you, every answer is a new one, not repetitive. And we already featured you on our previous events over the years many times. It's always something new. Appreciate you. Next
Thank
question.
you. Okay.
How do how do you enlighten someone who does not think they need your service other than creating value?
Well, are they succeeding or not? If any salesperson that isn't in the top 20% of their company is at risk. And the real productivity improving pot of gold for large organizations is to get the bottom 80% of their sales force at least producing at a quota level. The top 20%, they don't need my help. They're intuitive. They just know what to do, and they know how to communicate, and they have empathy. They have high EQ, but they're going to make it no matter what. It's the bottom 80%. If we can figure out a way to teach engineers and financial planners and IT people, people who don't have natural connecting skills, empathy skills, connective listening skills, we have to give them a model they can follow that allows them to connect with strangers. The hardest part of selling for most people is connecting with strangers and getting them to trust me, even though I'm in sales, and feel a connection with me and trust me enough to admit a problem to me. And if we can teach engineers and financial people, people who don't have high EQ, to go out and make a contact with a stranger and get that stranger to trust them enough to share their problem, now they can turn on their engineer brain and help them solve that problem. That part's easy. It's the initial trust building and connecting that is, and this is just isn't salespeople. I asked ChatGPT one day, I said, what percentage of humans, of people, have high EQ? And it said between 17 and 21%. And that pretty much follows the top 20%, not only of sales, the top 20% of senior executives or storytellers. They have high EQ, the people follow them. The top 20% of teachers, their students love their classes, typically because they're stories. I mean, think about history teachers. Most people I know hated history when they went through school because their teacher put up bullet points and memorized these dates and stuff. But the 20% of those history teachers who could tell stories, favorite class of all of them. So we have to figure out a way to teach the people who don't naturally connect how to connect and build trust.
If you took over a company that had been around for a long time delivering commodity product, and the salespeople and the people in the business had really set ways of thinking about the business as a commodity, how would you go about changing the mindset and the culture?
Well, it's really interesting because with commodities, for sure, the person with the best communication connecting skills wins. They're not winning on product, it's a commodity, right? That showcases how important emotional connection and trust are. And it's funny because I have a niece who works for IBM, and they hired her years ago because she's a hunter. She'd been through my workshops many times. She'd coached. She could go out and find people who should be looking and and take them through and close them. But you know what they have her doing now? They have her babysitting the giant companies, the Nikes, the Walmarts and stuff, because of her people skills. And I think, God, I don't know how many I think she's managing $100 million in revenue. And it's not for her hunting skills, it's for her political skills, her high EQ. She knows how to get silos talking to each other. I mean, it's those high level people skills that, and they don't want to make her a manager. They want to keep her attached to their highest revenue clients because of those people skills.
How can a salesperson remain relevant at a time of information parity when the customer is more in control of the sales process than ever?
Again, I think the first thing I would do is I'd have all those salespeople change their job title on their card to solution facilitator.
Hmm.
And on the first meeting, what I would say, Julia, I'd say, you can see my card says solution facilitator. My company wants me to find people who can use our products and services to make more money, save money, achieve goals, and solve problems. And so my job is to see if that's possible. If I can't find a way to help you be more successful, to find solutions to your problems, we're going to part friends. And it's that whole attitude of, I'm not trying to push a product on you. I'm not going to try and get you to buy it by December 31st so our numbers look better. It's not about me. It's about you. And I'd love all salespeople to change their job title to solution facilitator. It would make a big difference.
What's your favorite strategy for multi-threading to the top level of a mid-market or enterprise client?
Multi-threading. Tell me what you mean by multi-threading. I would never ever use that term. So explain it to me first, and then I'll answer the question.
Basically, involving different roles within the
Okay.
organization in the thread.
All right. Well, if you go way back to solution selling, which I started selling in 83, wrote the book in 93, there are three pieces to discovery. The first one is to discover the problem from the person's point of view that you're talking to. Okay, so if you were back in my Xerox days, if you were a manufacturing executive, the first thing I would do be to tell you a story how I helped one of your peers eliminate their shortages. And then you'd open up and you'd start telling me about your shortages. And I would say, well, is it because of this? And is it because of this? And is it because of this? So my first wave of discovery is you and me, your point of view. And then I'd summarize my problem, your problem, as I see it, and I'd say, Julia, do I get you? And if you say, yes, you get me. Now I'd say, well, Julia, besides you, who else in the organization is impacted by your shortage problem? And you'd say, well, my boss is on me all the time because the shipment schedule's out of whack. And I'd say, all right. And now, open question first. And I'd say, well, aren't those shortages causing delivery delays? And you'd say yes. And you'd say, well, is your CFO impacted by the revenue? Are your projected revenues not coming in? Is your CFO concerned? Is the engineering department who's doing the bills of material, are they concerned because they're getting pressure to do this? In other words, you say, besides you, who else is impacted in your organization? Allow them to answer first, then go in with closed questions with the knowledge you have, and then summarize. This is all out of the 9 boxes in solution selling. So first is, here's how I understand your problem. Second is, here's how I understand how your problem is impacting this person, this person, this person, and this person in your organization. And now I go to the visioning part of the discovery, which is the highest. It's the hardest, which is, let's say you told me that your last weekend got ruined because you were supposed to go see your kid play soccer, but on Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock, your largest vendor called you and said, I'm not going to be able to deliver those components next Monday as I promised. It's going to be a 2-week delay. And you've been going through the whole weekend trying to figure out what customers you have to call and reluctantly say, hey, Julia, I'm sorry, you were supposed to get these things here and now you're getting them here. I say, the next time that happens and you want to go to your kid's soccer game, what if you could go over to your terminal and say, this component isn't going to come in time, replan. And you're going to leave the office on Friday afternoon at 3 and go watch your kid play soccer. And then if you want to come in Saturday morning, you don't have to. Here are the 17 customers that are going to be dramatically impacted with their phone numbers. Call them. In other words, let the system help you solve that problem. So you get them, you put them out there and say, the next time this bad thing, you told me about this bad thing and it happens. What if when the next time that bad thing happens, you now knew this, could see this, could simulate this, could replan this, could run this, and fix that problem. You empower them with a buying vision. And that's what elite salespeople do. They diagnose and they discover from the individual point of view, they discover from the organizational impact, and then they help. Then they're solution facilitators. They're helping the buyer see how they would solve that problem if they had these 3 things that they don't have today. Oh, but by the way, you have them for sale.
Thank you so much for being more than generous with your time, Mike. Last question.
Okay.
Um, Selling in 2024 and this, call it whatever, but people are saying recession, and there are a lot of talk about it, emotions, and generally just, I don't know, fear, I guess. What is your take on this? Would you change your methodology, the way you go about sales? Um,
If I were in sales today and I was clearly convinced that the economy, the marketplace, the recession has eliminated most of the need for my or demand for my products, I'd go find another job. I mean, to me, if I know how to sell to the organization, I want to sell something that's relevant, that's going to help people in 2024 compete better, take care of their customers better, go find new buyers better, improve their product quality better, and if I'm not selling something like that I'm not convinced I'd buy in that economy, I'd change jobs.
Wise advice. What a thrill to feature Mike Bosworth, always. Everybody, please spread the word about this event and book a one-on-one session exclusively on HSC with Mike Bosworth himself. And yeah, it's available on Wednesday, to my knowledge.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Thank you, Julia. It's always a
Huge
pleasure.
pleasure, as always.
All right.
Thanks. Bye bye.
Bye.